National Crisis Group senior consultant for Southern Africa, Piers Pigou, joins us now live from Johannesburg. Thanks so much for speaking to us. These issues really haven't just suddenly raised their heads. They've been problems for years now in South Africa, and the government really hasn't dealt with them. So let's start with the issue of xenophobia. How can they tackle it if foreigners have been conveniently used as a scapegoat, really, for unemployment?
Well, the xenophobic issues in South Africa are a complex set of factors involved. You know, there is a tendency for simplification in much of the analysis about what is driving xenophobic attacks, or what have been described here as Afrophobic attacks, because largely the attacks have been on other African nationals, although we have seen attacks on other nationals from countries such as Bangladesh and so forth. The issue appears to be primarily around proximity of foreign nationals with South Africans in areas of where socioeconomic conditions are more difficult for people to survive, and there's a competition of resources. Now, there are according to the survey work over the last 25 years or so, there's a rump of South Africans who hold negative attitudes towards foreign nationals, and this cuts across racial demographic lines. This is not simply about what black people think. We find these negative attitudes amongst rich white people as well. But where we see the most friction is, as I say, at a level of interaction amongst poor communities where there's competition for resources, there's criminal opportunism in play and so forth. So there's a complex set of factors that are involved, and you're absolutely right, this is not a new phenomenon.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting that you brought up the attitude of kind of wealthy South Africans, because there's also an issue with them. They do create massive employment for the poor, you know, as domestics, gardeners, security guards, etc. And many of them, don't want to hire South Africans, actually. They prefer Zimbabweans or Malawians. That's a mindset that would need to change, is it not, in order to address the underlying issue?
Well, you know, I'm not sure whether one can draw such generalizations about who gets employed. There's been a long history of migration into the region, into South Africa from the region, and we have found Malawians, Zimbabweans, Mozambicans working in all manner of environments. And yes, certainly in the domestic worker industry, we've seen a lot of foreigners being employed. And yes, some people do have preferences for this. I mean, and of course, it's not only rich, wealthy white people that are employing domestic workers. We also have middle-class black people and wealthier black people also employing domestic workers from South Africa, also from the region. So it's a very mixed bag. I think we need to be very cautious about generalizations. And one of the big problems around understanding these attacks has been a fanning of fake news, of hyperbole and so forth, which really generated a lot of problematic misinformation about what was going on here.
Okay, Piers Pigou, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us from Johannesburg. We appreciate it.